What's up guys, VanGalta here and welcome back to another video. Ever since the dawn of video games, there has always been an overwhelming pressure to add some kind of lore or greater story to what's happening. Ever since the dawn of retro classics like Mario and Sonic, there's always been some lore or story reason for gameplay. Even if it is something as simple as a rogue plumber jumping on Goombas and turtles and fighting his way to a castle that's guarded by a dragon dinosaur holding a princess hostage. Come to think of it, that's not very simple at all. But in any case, the pressure to have some kind of narrative reason for what the player's doing in-game has always been there. But I mean, to be fair, in earlier video games, most of the effort was put into the gameplay rather than the narrative setting. And that's why if you start asking questions like, why is an Italian plumber going to save the princess instead of an actual warrior, the narrative starts to fall apart. But in that age of video games, the art was so underdeveloped that you couldn't really blame them. However, several brave developers actually dared to put thought and effort into the story of what they were making. Early examples include Final Fantasy and The Legend of Zelda, both fantasy adventures that have their own plot, characters, and setting. Granted, early video game stories happen to be very cliche, but they eventually got good. Eventually. But as video games grew as an art form, so did their potential to tell a story. Throughout time, we would see a new genre of video game emerge. A genre of video game dedicated to telling a story above all else. As Final Fantasy, Legend of Zelda, and a bunch of other titles expanded on their narrative potential, a new challenger entered the fray. That being a little-known Capcom series named Resident Evil. These story games, as we'll call them, heavily focused on the narrative, not necessarily at the expense of gameplay, but I mean, come on. They had their moments. At this point, we weren't really that close to the era of only online video games. Over time, developers learned to perfect the art of actually telling a good story through a video game. But soon, a video game studio by the name of Naughty Dog would release a title that would forever revolutionize the way stories were told in video games. They would release a title that, even to this day, has been critically acclaimed by its ability to blend gameplay with story. A game that within 10 years will be remastered, not once, but twice, and have a hit HBO TV show made about it. What game could make such waves? What console exclusive could make such an impact? My friend, I have but 4 words for you. The Last of Us. Oh yeah, this game is among the legends. When you get into a conversation about the best video games created between 2010 and 2020, The Last of Us better be on that list. It's a game that would go to video game heaven were there such a place, along with Skyrim and Ocarina of Time. There's no denying the impact that The Last of Us made in the gaming community. Some were convinced that the story was too good for a mere video game. Others demanded a big screen adaptation of what they considered to be an amazing story. And here we are, almost 10 years after the original Last of Us's release. And after many years of waiting, HBO has finally coughed up a TLOU TV show. But does this TV show live up to the hype? Is it everything we ever wished for? Or is it just another filthy attempt to milk that cash cow for even more money? Well, in this review, hopefully I'll be able to tell you. Before we begin, I would just like to say that if you enjoy the video, please drop a like and comment in the comment section down below. And if you like what you see and you like to see more of what you like to see, then smash that subscribe button and turn notifications on so that you don't miss another video like this one. I make videos about whatever I want, and sometimes that includes making videos that you want to watch. On second thought, I should probably cut that from the script. So take my hand and we will venture once more into the zombie-infested world of The Last of Us. Jewel in the swine's nose. If you're familiar with the expression, you know that it means something good that is covered in a lot of bad. If you want the TLDR, this is how I'd say The Last of Us is. The TV show, I mean, not the game. The game is an unbridled masterpiece in my opinion. I watched the show as it came out and gave episodic reviews on my blog, which you should definitely check out, thewritersrack.com. And during my combined review, I saw a lot of what I liked and a lot of what I hated. There are some very good bits, I cannot lie, but there is definitely a lot of crap covering this masterpiece. To be fair, given the reputation of film adaptations of popular video games, I didn't go into The Last of Us with really high expectations. I mean, just look at that old quack Super Mario Bros. Movie and Resident Evil. Geez, they've butchered literally every attempt to put Resident Evil on the screen. And given the fact that The Last of Us 2 was a vitriol-inciting, fan-base dividing disaster,
Oh shit, here we go again.
I was not feeling incredibly pumped for this TV show. So is it a good show? No. But yes, actually. Let me explain. The show does have quite a few good elements, I'm not gonna lie. Episode 1, I'll be fair, opened up really well for the series. It established familiar characters with shot-for-shot scene remakes, and overall, I was really happy with it. They did take some minor liberties with some various plot points, but overall, it stuck true to the tone, style, and message of the original. I was honestly really happy with it. My main two complaints here, and these will pop up later, is that some parts seemed needlessly and obviously padded out, and I feared that the casting choices would come back to bite the show in the ass. These complaints were very minor at the moment, but as the show proved, they would get a lot worse. And I mean a lot worse. But I mean, overall, it was good. Episode 2 continued the trend of being respectful to the source material while changing things when it was convenient for the story. I was on board with this as I believe that an adaptation can change parts of the source material if it is convenient for the rest of the story. Episode 2 was pretty good, all things considered. It wasn't going exactly as I'd hoped, but I mean, there was nothing really I could complain about. Episode 1 and 2 stuck pretty close to what the original game had laid out for it. But little did I know that the series would eventually take a very wrong turn. Now, who's your favorite character in The Last of Us? A lot of people will probably pick Joel, next up will probably be Ellie, then maybe Sam or Henry, and then after that it's debatable. But for me, when I played The Last of Us, hands down, my favorite character was Bill. Bill to me was a very sad story. A story of a man who forsook his friend in the name of survival, mirroring similar decisions Joel would have to take later. Bill's story had great emotional impact because of how hopeless a character he was. Bill is a symbol of those who hold survival above all else. As such, he leads a cold and miserable life. The Last of Us plays with a whole host of characters and explores many ideas within those characters. With Bill, it's whether or not survival is truly the highest good. And episode 3 is when Bill would make his debut. Now, at this point in time, I should address the elephant in the room. Is Bill gay? And the only true answer to that is maybe? You see, if you've been a Last of Us fan for any stretch of time, you probably have heard some fan theories circulating that Bill is actually gay. A strong argument could be made to that effect. If you ask me, I don't go either way. Most of the proof that finances such a claim comes from the following quote.
How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together?
If you want to know what I think there's compelling evidence for both sides. But regardless of what you think about Bill, whether or not he's gay is definitely not the point of his story. His story is supposed to be a cautionary tale. His story is a sad story meant to convey a moral to the audience. And that moral is survival cannot be the highest good. This is illustrated by the fact that he's irreparably hurt his friendship with Frank. This dynamic hit us like a gut punch, and it doesn't actually matter if Bill is gay for this to work. So people fighting about whether or not Bill is gay is not the actual problem here. The problem here is, does episode 3 of The Last of Us convey the same message that that segment in the video game did? And the answer is no. If you want the short of it, episode 3 is basically a long flashback sequence about the gay relationship between Frank and Bill. Aside from the fact that the writers shouldn't be taking an episode-long break from a show that is supposed to be about fighting zombies to show us this, I think that there are several problems with it overall. In short, episode 3 is a pretty bad episode. I mean, number one, let's get the obvious out of the way. This is a show about fighting zombies. I like zombie action, give me zombie action. When I watch a zombie show, I want to see people shooting zombies. When I watch a survival horror, I want to see people in a survival horror setting. If I want to see a gay romance, I'll go watch Bros, which nobody showed up for. Secondly, the character of Bill has been completely butchered. Bill's strength from the original game came from being very hardcore. He was a traditional, no questions asked, grumpy ass prepper. And he acted like it. He was a jerk. And that was the point of his character. It wanted to show us how Joel would be if he abandoned Ellie. It was meant to show us that survival might not be the highest good. But this new Bill magically falls in love with Frank in an over-exaggerated love at first sight scene, and then he proceeds to show how much of a buffoon he is by wandering out into the middle of the street and getting shot in the gut. That doesn't sound very hardcore prepper to me. And to be clear, this new Bill is not hardcore. He's just kind of an asshole towards Frank. He's grumpy. Ooh, he's really intense, isn't he? That's some intense grumpiness you got there, Bill. In the end, the grumpiness is just a show. There's no point to any of it. Thirdly, the main point of Bill's character arc is absent. The original Bill's story was a deep commentary on how survival is not the highest good. What does this new Bill tell us? Well, it tells us that being grumpy is okay as long as you help your friend commit assisted suicide. Like, none of the oomph is here, it's just a sappy homoerotic fantasy. There's no moment where Bill and Joel walk into a house and see Frank dead, having hanged himself. There's no heart-crushing moment when Joel hands Bill Frank's last hateful letter, and Bill is unable to contain his grief. There's no somber farewell as Bill tells Joel to get the hell out of his town, because Bill is dead by the time that happens, and he just left a note behind, basically summarizing the events of this whole flashback. And on top of that, we've wasted an entire episode on a plot arc that definitely did not need to happen. Episode 3 is dead weight, and I kind of hate it because this new Bill is not at all like the old Bill that I really loved. You get what I'm saying here? Are the dots connecting? You get what I'm saying here? Or, like, am I crazy? Episodes 1 and 2 stay really close to the source material, and they are very good. Episode 3 completely throws the source material out the window for its own ideas. So episode 3 is dead weight. Maybe episode 4 is better. Well, yeah, actually, it is. You see, the week after the 3rd episode, I was kind of reluctant to watch the 4th episode, because if they were just gonna throw the source material out the window, then why bother? After all, the source material is widely regarded as a masterpiece. Like, this show has to prove itself by going in the footsteps of what made the original actually great. And yeah, it was just like 1 or 2. In my opinion, it was actually better than 1 and 2. Familiar lines were said, familiar scenes were acted out, familiar set pieces were seen. They were setting up a new plot arc with Sam and Henry. Like, I loved it. Although at this point, I started to see some problems tonally. It's not quite as terrible as the MCU, but come on, if we're honest, the show swings between steamy romance, cold medical openings, touching drama, and heart-wrenching cruelty. It's like an amalgamated soup of a bunch of things that should be really good together, but that's only if you handle them right. The execution just wasn't there. Although, all things considered, I was pretty happy with the 4th episode. The 5th episode is this show's magnum opus in my opinion. It is a very fine piece of television. It combined everything we wanted into one: emotional payoffs, zombie action, and that really heart-wrenching Sam and Henry scene. I loved it. I'm not scared to admit that I really loved the 5th episode. Makes me want to forget about episode 3 because it's just that good. Even had the little Easter egg by the way the bloater kills Perry, also known as Tactical Santa Claus or TSC, as a Joel death animation from the game. I really enjoyed that nod, brutal though it may be, to the source material, and it was that clean little detail that got me excited about the episode. Like, really excited. I was actually excited about the show again. I thought that maybe I could forgive it one flat episode if it could nail it the rest of the show. By now, that dreaded 3rd episode had been buttressed by 2 really good episodes apiece. I was really excited to tune into the next episode, and it's back to being mediocre.
Oh, shit.
It was at that point that if you asked me whether or not The Last of Us TV show was a masterpiece, or even if it was good, I was a bumbling mass of contradictions. I'd tell you that it's a faithful adaptation of a favorite video game. I'd tell you that it's a malicious manipulation of a beloved IP for personal gain. I'd tell you that these roles are well casted and acted, and at the same time, I'd tell you that everyone on set is a bumbling idiot who has no idea what they're doing or where they're going. That was basically this show. 2 good episodes, followed by a deadweight episode, then 2 more good episodes, and then a really mediocre episode. And no, I'm not talking about how Maria was race swapped, although they had to have an obligatory few of those in there. It was like the producers were trying to tell us, hey, in case you were checking, diversity and inclusion's still a thing. Also, on that note, no one cares for a lecture about the goods of communism. Why even mention it? just so that a black woman can annoy Tommy and Joel, the two strong, straight white men who are naturally against it? Look at you, just having a girl power moment. You go, girl, show those nasty white men how great communism is. Fine, you know what, whatever, it's not even like I have the capacity to care anymore at this point. So episode 6 was suitably mediocre, and that's a shame because it had a lot of important plot points in it. Like, you have a problem when your protagonist can literally almost die, and I can still say that the episode is a meh fest. Okay, so I thought maybe 7 is better. And oh no, it has episode 3 syndrome.
Oh, sh**.
Honestly, with the power of Captain Hindsight, I can say that watching this show for a review is like treading through a minefield. There is a 50-50 chance I could step on a lovingly crafted, carefully adapted scene from a video game I loved, and an equal chance the show could go on a needlessly hour-long tangent to explain a backstory I never really cared about. And this time, episode 7, I stepped on a nuke. Jeez, this episode was so boring. Virtually the whole episode is a flashback to The Last of Us Left Behind DLC, which details Ellie's backstory. I use the term loosely because it's not a highly detailed backstory that makes us care all about the character, but just a brute force way to establish that Ellie's really gay for a chick named Riley, a sentiment that The Last of Us Part 2 hammered home quite heavy-handedly. This ain't it, Chief. This literally ain't it. Essentially, it retreaded the same ground we had in the 3rd episode, so I won't go over the details again. And again, the flashback literally did not need to happen. So what do we have so far? Episodes 1 and 2 are good, episode 3 is dead weight, episode 4 and 5 are good, episode 6 is mediocre, and episode 7 is another dead weight episode. Like, guys, we were so close. We were this close.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close to providing peace.
This could have been so amazing. If you had only stayed true to the source material on the 3rd episode, it might have actually mattered. If you would have tightened up the writing mistakes in the 5th episode, it could have actually been great. If you were to just cut out the 7th episode entirely, the show would be so much better off. But the answer, unfortunately, is no. Okay, geez, this script is long. Okay, where were we? Yeah, the 7th episode. The 7th episode is dead weight. It doesn't give us anything we need to know about the story. Again, if I watch a zombie show, I want to see zombies, okay? I'm not a hard man to please. Just give me zombies. Okay, episode 8. Episode 8 is like episode 6, only just worse in every way. For one thing, the character David was absolutely butchered in the writing room. Not only is he a fundamentalist Christian now, he's a zombie cultist and a rapist.
You should see your faces because you look ridiculous.
The script tries to tell us so hard that this man is a Bible-thumping Christian, but anyone with a lick of knowledge about the religion knows that the man consistently does unchristian things. Kind of like backhanding a child across the face when she disagrees with him in front of the entire group of survivors. Then suddenly he's not Christian. Apparently cordyceps, the mutated fungus that made the zombies, has showed him the truth about humanity. From the way he talks, he's like some kind of creepy cultist. Kind of like how they're trying to portray Christians, am I right? Those damn cultists. Then he goes full Dark Lord mode and engages his "join me as my queen and together we will rule the galaxy" speech on Ellie, of all people. So he's a Christian, then he's an asshole, then he's not a Christian, then he's a human butcher, then he's a zombie cultist, then he's a Dark Lord, then he's a child rapist, then he's a will you just make up your damn mind already people. David is the main villain of this plot arc, which is crammed into a single episode so quickly. Jeez, man, like, why? He's just too confusing to even make sense of. And just checking to see if the zombies have made a return? No? Oh, well, shit. Joel has zero effect on the actual plot of the episode, and the show is, true to form, going out of its way to show how disfavored people groups are frowned upon with pseudo-intellectual commentary on the nature of cordyceps that no one even listened to anyway. Episode 8 was a confused, ramble affair that did not do anything to help the show's declining quality. I wish I was playing Octopath Traveler 2. Anyway, episode 8 didn't work for obvious reasons, so maybe 9 does better. And the answer to that question is yeah, no, and absolutely not. It was overall pretty good, but ultimately not enough to correct the series' failings. I mean, to give it credit, this episode included the only relevant cold opening to date. A few episodes in the show, I think like about 4 or 5, have a really bizarre, like, padded out opening that like really gives us nothing worth seeing. Like, this doctor does an autopsy on a dead body. Cool, I guess? This guy's explaining that the world is gonna end if the fungus mutates. That's interesting, I suppose. What I like to say is that the game didn't need this, so why does the show? We haven't gotten a compelling reason why the show needs this to exist. But back to the last episode. I think the last episode stayed pretty true to the source material, all things considered, and was overall pretty good. Although I can't help but think that there was some pretty generous editing as to how Joel killed the Fireflies to make his death in Season 2 seem way more, how should I say this, justified? Okay. I should probably wrap this up. So first of all, before I say the show's biggest failings, let me just point out what it gets right. The writing mainframe is very good, except for a few moments that I can nitpick, especially in episode 6. There's no real writing problems with the series. I could nitpick some tonal things, I can nitpick some character things, but overall, the writing is solid for what it is. The problem comes because it is an adaptation, and because of how much better this show could be. First off, let's talk characters. The way Ellie's written is both inconsistent with her character in the video game and weak overall. She's far more commandeering and willful in the show without apparent reason, and is at times really actually creepy and annoying. This problem is only exacerbated by the fact that in rare moments she's written perfectly. For every 12 or so moments, she's treating Joel like her equal, acting narcissistic or needlessly sarcastic, or being a girl boss. There's one where she's genuinely vulnerable or realistically poetic. But most of the time, she's far too assertive and annoying to be the vulnerable yet cocky Ellie we loved from the game. The main problem here is that the writers mistake a cocky attitude for an actual confidence. Ellie isn't actually confident, she's actually scared and lonely. But she puts up a veneer of confidence in the form of attitude and cockiness, just to give off that persona. She would learn real confidence throughout the course of the story, which is, of course, exactly what they don't do here. Then there's the casting. Combining the writing discrepancies with an actor that's a total plank of wood in addition to looking nothing like Ellie from the games is a sure recipe for disaster. Bella Ramsey is the worst offender by far in this regard. I'm willing to make exceptions for other characters, even Joel. But Ellie was what made The Last of Us work. They bungled her character pretty badly, and it definitely shows. Short version, Bella Ramsey looks nothing like Ellie and is not even that great of an actor. I have less of a problem with how Joel is written, but it's a problem nonetheless. This version of Joel is quieter, less assertive, and overall more tame. While I wouldn't normally object to this change if we had an on-point Ellie, it's clear that Bella Ramsey's Ellie and Pedro's Pascal do not mix. Ellie's new confidence combined with Joel's quiet and unassertive nature makes Ellie seem controlling and Joel more weak, which is not a vibe we should be getting from Joel. He's also seriously whiny in some parts. I feel like him complaining that he's weak to Tommy is just the obligatory "we must make straight white men look pitiful" trope that we've been seeing in a lot of modern media recently. Like Ellie, his script is written a bit spotty and inconsistently, but his quiet nature in the show doesn't leave much to critique. He's fine for the most part, and Pedro Pascal does a sufficient job. But again, this character carries so much of the show. He needs to be better than just mid. The rest of the cast is mostly inconsequential. There are a few obligatory race swaps, wearing your heart on your sleeve again, modern Hollywood I see, that has been hammered home into oblivion by now, and so we've been mostly desensitized to it. But another thing that pisses me off is the pretense of addressing moral issues. The show pretends to play with ideas like the moral culpability of pure survival, the moral quandaries between the Fireflies and Fedra, and whether or not people like David and Kathleen are actually right. The video game explored these complex ideas, but the show does not. They instead make it look like they're going to do it, but then pull a bait and switch and slap the black or white card on it instead. Where the game didn't hesitate to explore deep issues of love, survival, the justifiability of violence, and living with a stained soul, the show just flirts with the ideas but doesn't explore them in any kind of meaningful way. So, quick recap. 25% of this show does not do anything for its quality. The cast and how the characters are written are only halfway there overall. The writing is almost all there, I really like it, I just wish all the elements were in place. So this show has a problem with wasting time and not capitalizing where it could. The show has an excellent groundwork, a cast that could do wonders if the writing was just a little bit better, and in addition, a budget to get this all done. So in conclusion, The Last of Us is the crappiest masterpiece I have ever seen in television. I have no idea how a show could be so good, yet so bad, yet so mid. I feel like it kind of falls prey to Rings of Power syndrome, where it's not really that bad, but because it's adapting something incredible, anything less than incredible is going to be shunned. And so I basically shun this TV show because it's not as good as the original. Again, if you really like this show, you're definitely free to do that. It's America, it's a free country. You're allowed to do that in this country because we're not communists. But why don't you sound off in the comment section down below with your opinion of how The Last of Us TV show went. And while you're at it, you might as well hammer that subscribe button and turn notifications on so that you don't miss another rage-inciting video like this one. But in any case, I remain Van Galta, and I'll see you in the next video.